Namaste, yogis. Welcome to episode 8 of the Happy Jack Yoga podcast. I see you, Yada, out there in the sunshine, giving a little namaste. I'm Happy Jack, coming at you live from Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA, and I'm here with
Happy Hanna, and I am in Liechtenstein.
That's so cool. That's a tiny country. I also have been to that home. Your friend Annette in Liechtenstein. Isn't the entire country like 22 kilometers long or something? I could be wrong, but isn't it something like that?
Yeah, it's so tiny. And I think there's like around 30,000 inhabitants in all of the country. You can drive from one end to the other like in 25 minutes or something.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Check it out. Anybody who's not heard of Liechtenstein, check it out on a map sometime. And if I remember, it's surrounded by like Italy, Switzerland, Austria.
Liechtenstein is right in between Switzerland and Austria.
Uh-huh.
And then to get to Italy, you would have to go through either Austria or Switzerland.
Okay.
Not far away.
I remember that when I remember you lined me up to go stay with Annette. This is several years ago now. And I met with some really dear friends who also happened to be from that town. And we did a yoga class, and it was like a really big class. I almost remember exactly. There was 34 students, which I was quite impressed because it was not an existing yoga studio, but just Annette and her friends like were able to pull together this group of 34 yogis. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, people here are amazing.
Cool. Well, it's so great to have you back, Hanna. We missed you last week for episode 7, but of course, Kristen stepped in. She stepped up, rocked it. We had so much fun. We even got to connect with Cece from the team right at the end of the podcast. But here we are. And first, we want to thank everybody who's here live with us. Shout out. Love it. We got Dee Dee and Ken representing out on the West Coast. We got Brandon, Diana, Elizabeth, Felicia, Jewel, Kiernan, Sue, Tammy, Tanya, and Yada. Thank you all so much for being here. There are 14 yogis connected around the globe. And thank you everybody who's listening on one of the podcast platforms, whether that's Spotify or Apple or Google. And a huge thank you to those of you who are making a contribution to our Patreon listener-supported podcast. We have, if you go to patreon.com/Happy Jack Yoga, for the price of a cup of coffee per month, you can make a small donation and it supports this listener-supported podcast. Some of you here are doing that, and we thank you very much. And really though, really want to think, this is the cool thing of being able to come here together and have this conversation. And I'm excited for what we have to talk about today. But I got to say, Hanna, normally you and I, we talk every single day. It's rare that a day goes by that you and I don't talk, right? In the evening, we go for a walk and a talk. We haven't talked in, I feel like, a couple of weeks. You've been fully immersed, in another retreat over there in Europe. So nice to see you. All is well. It looked, from following your stories, it looks like it's been amazing. How are you? What is on your heart right now?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I've been fully immersed in the heart of Italy, one of my home countries. So it's been really beautiful and healing and emotional, very much. At the drop of a hat, I'm emotional and crying because, I don't know, just feels really like, I don't know, it touches me deeply. The beauty of that country and the time I've spent there. I feel like those were some formative years for me. So it's really beautiful to reconnect and spend time with amazing people. And also it's really good to be back, and it's strange that we haven't had time to connect at all, and let's do it now.
Let's do it now. That's great. And thank you though for sharing how, by reconnecting to your roots, you lived in Italy for 9 years. That's where you were moving to when your husband passed, your first husband. So I can really get a lot of emotion, just so many beautiful memories would come up. And it's interesting you share that though about the emotions, because just last night I had a really beautiful emotional experience. You actually, just before we hit record here, you asked if everything was okay because I had shared a post. We have a family WhatsApp group. You're part of it, of course. And I had shared in there that, like, in the 1980s, I don't know, mid 80s, I was at my grandma's house and I found this cassette tape. And it was a cassette tape of a band called Mike and the Mechanics. I assume most of you have not heard of that band. Oh, Sue has. Okay. So, anyways, I this cassette tape, and I remember listening to it, and I remember listening to it with my dad. And there's this one song in particular called "In the Living Years," and I don't know how social media made that show up, in front of me, but it showed up on my feed yesterday. So I went to YouTube, I watched the video, and was just bawling uh, with like happy tears, and also like the kind of the nature of the song. I encourage you to check it out sometime. "In the Living Years" by Mike and the Mechanics. It's really about a guy talking about when he loses his father. And so in one way I was, really happy thinking about those beautiful memories. And then on the other hand, I was thinking about, he says, one of the lyrics is, "I wasn't there the day my father passed away." Um, and so then just thinking about that, and I kind of put myself in those shoes. That will happen one day. Maybe I'll be there, but regardless, he will pass away. And just like, I happen to be standing in the bathroom, and I look like full on breakdown. Like, I look like my life just fell apart. And it wasn't like, traumatic or anything, because nothing was real. But I just like felt for a moment like a glimpse of what that will feel like. And then I decided I go for a walk. You and I didn't talk because time zones don't work. But I was listening to this song while I went for a walk last night, and I was just like bawling my eyes out. And I was kind of worried, like, if I would pass somebody in my apartment or on the street, because I was crying pretty hard. But it was just like such beautiful memories. And then of course I shared it in our family chat, and just kind of shared. And my sister, she's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that tape, at grandma's house." And it's interesting how these memories or these moments from the past can so quickly bring us right back to, like, just evoke those emotions. And that was just a bunch of imaginatory stuff that I went through, and that was deep for me. So I can only imagine for you some of the real life experiences you've had, and being in Italy, um, quite cathartic and beautiful.
Yeah, it is for sure. It makes me emotional to hear you say that, because that's what grief has done to me a lot, right? Over the years. And maybe some would say that what you are experiencing is anticipatory grief, where you can kind of like see how it might be. And sometimes, it's not a bad thing to process things, right? So yeah, it's both beautiful and emotional and all the things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's what it was. And it, like, kind of the also the one of the kind of calls to action for the song, or one of the messages of the song, is like, "I wish I would have told you in the living years." So that's the title, "In the Living Years." Like, I wish I would have told you. So that's why, in that the family chat, I said, "I love you, Dad, and everybody else here," but, specifically said that. We don't normally say that, in messages, in group messages, even so much in person. So I thought it was important. And just a little bit on that topic. I'm just gonna quickly share it. I gotta pull it up here quick, because I sent some questions to my mom. Again, I don't know what the social media algorithm is doing these days, but I got one of those posts that said, "Ask these questions of your mom before she's gone." And I'm sure some of our listeners have lost their mom or a parent, and some of us haven't yet. But I sent my mom these 7 questions, and I'll just read them for you, just to we can all think about them. And if you want to ask them to your parents. So first, what is your happiest memory of us? Second, what was your first year of motherhood like for you? Third, is there anything about our family's history you've kept a secret? Fourth, what is the nicest thing I've ever done for you? 5, what do you want or wish most for your kids? Number 6, what have been the best and worst parts about getting older? And 7, the last one, what's one thing you want me to always remember after you are gone? And I just thought those were nice, at least, kind of get my mom thinking about, some of her favorite moments from that first year of motherhood, and, not just getting her thinking about those nice things. And it would be nice to have that, to have the answers to that when she is gone. So I haven't got a response yet, but I did talk to my mom last night, and she does intend to at some point. She actually talked about writing down the answers and then putting them in a time capsule, so we'd find them after she's gone, which is one option. But then I also said it'd be kind of nice to know now as well, so we can talk about it. But either, I accept either from my mom. But it's nice to do this kind of reflection and feel these emotions.
Yeah, wow, that's really beautiful and some really, really good questions.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if you go back, listen to the episode if anybody wants to catch those. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things happening. Momentarily here, we're gonna jump into our yoga myth that we're gonna bust. But just before we go there, just a couple of updates, because Hanna, you and I haven't had a chance to chat for a while. Craziest thing or coolest thing, I'm studying here at Harvard Divinity School. I've got a lot of papers due right now, 2 papers due this week, so I'm doing a lot of research. And one of the papers I'm doing about is a mantra that comes from a text called the Brahma Samhita. It's a beautiful mantra. You hear it a lot at bhakti yoga temples. And this particular mantra was made famous by George Harrison of the Beatles. He met the bhakti yogis and got like all into it. And if you don't know, what My Sweet Lord, a great tune by George Harrison where he really brings in bhakti yoga. But anyways, the whole point, and my professor was challenging me to try and figure out why did they pick these 2 specific verses, because there's like 62 verses, and George Harrison picked 2 of them. And so he's like basically challenging me, do you think, was it random? Did he pick the best ones? Is it, how did they come across this, and see if basically is asking me to come up with my perspective on it. But I did one step better than that. I was able to get in touch with some yogis that actually, I was able to get in touch with a woman who happens to be dear friends with this guy named Shyam Sundar, who's George Harrison's like best friend. Like for the last 32 years of George Harrison's life, like when he really kind of, he finished with the Beatles era, and then he became really into spirituality and yoga and meditation and bhakti yoga. So this guy Shyam Sundar, get in touch with him. He's happy. I mean, he's 80 now, but he's happy to share. And so he's kind of sent me this book and an email with all these details. So I won't get into the answer of it, but I got all the answers that I need for my professor. So that was a lot of fun. You just never know who you're gonna, when you're, I feel like when you're like, you're moving towards something that you're really passionate about, and something you're genuinely interested in, and something that has meaning, and something that will help others, like somehow the responses and the answers and like things just start showing up. So that was cool. That was a cool little fun thing.
Well, it certainly doesn't surprise me. You always make miracles happen. So that's really incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I will just quickly say the other paper that I'm doing is on the origins of yoga. And the reason I'm loving the research on this is because I'm learning some facts that basically all yoga teachers, yoga schools, yoga teacher trainings out there, there's some inaccuracy in a lot of the kind of broad claims that are made about yoga and its origins and how long it's been around. And I'm not going to get into all the details right now, but that will come out in time with my paper and, of course, our courses. But I want to just kind of caveat that with it doesn't mean that all of the work that we are doing and all of the work that each yogi here is doing, they should feel like, oh, I got to stop teaching yoga now because I don't know the exact year that yoga was invented, or something like that. But it's an opportunity to bring more integrity into our understanding and into our learning, and then eventually share that with our students. But it doesn't mean that we can't continue teaching, continue sharing, and doing all the beautiful things. So but it's
Exactly.
just so cool. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that's one of the reasons you are at Harvard, because you wanted to bring integrity into the yoga world. And, through you, we will all be exposed to what you find. And that's really beautiful. I feel like that's great. Like, wanting to learn more is good. And
Yeah.
we can teach already what we know now, but yeah.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. That's why we're here. That's why we're learning. We're here to grow. So many amazing things happening. But we'll catch up when, I guess, it's going to be some weeks still till we go for our daily walks, but we get to connect here on the podcast. But why don't we jump in? It looks like the lights are on in Berlin, which means our dear friend Jewel, who just I say that because moments ago it was kind of dark. You had a young baby there with you. Jewel, you sent in a beautiful question, and I'm gonna read it for the yogis now, and then if you want to elaborate on it, and then we'll kind of bounce it to Hanna and myself. So Jewel sent in this question. She says, I have stumbled across another yoga myth for you to bust on one of your podcast episodes, that yoga is always about relaxation. So after teaching my pregnant sister, and I did go gentle on her because I know she's not used to working out a lot, she said, that was really nice, but I just signed up for a pregnancy gymnastics class because I want to do something a little more exhausting. With yoga all being more about relaxation. So that got you started on your yoga speech. And sure, she's not the only one who thinks that. So I thought it was really good, essentially around the idea that yoga is only about relaxation. Jewel, do you want to just elaborate a little bit on that? And it's such a great myth.
Yeah, on my yoga speech. I mean, obviously, I started by telling her that there's so much more to yoga than just relaxing. I mean, you have many different styles of yoga, especially the ones that are more exhausting, like vinyasa, power yoga. I mean, even if I just think about the hero's journey with all the sun salutations at the beginning, it always kills me. And yeah, so I told her that obviously there is a workout to yoga if you want that. It's always also about what kind of intention you have when you start your yoga class. Sure, you can have relaxation, but you can also have focus. You can have the flow and the movements. You can have flexibility. And yeah, Hanna, we just connected in the yin call. And I remember Leah saying in one of the modules that yin is also so very special because, yes, we do relax, but we're going into uncomfortable positions on purpose. So, I mean, yes, it's kind of relaxing, the yin yoga, but even this yin yoga is also about finding your edge, about getting into those deep tissues. And yoga is not just like the easy way out for people who are too lazy for a proper workout, so to say.
That's so true. And you have so much wisdom as it is, Jewel. Like you busted a lot of that myth right there. But why don't let's bounce it over to Hanna. If you want to add on, please.
Yeah. I mean, that is a great myth to bust. Like, theoretically, all yoga is about regulating the nervous system. So the nervous system, if it was always relaxed, we wouldn't do anything. We wouldn't be able to talk. Like, it's that parts of the nervous system need to be active and then parts of it need to relax. Like, it's kind of like an inhale and an exhale. it's a balance, it's a call and response, it's an expansion and contraction kind of thing. If if we wanted to think about it in terms of nervous system regulation, then when we're too worked up, we want to come back to the window of tolerance, which is like the happy place where we can connect with each other. Or if we're too lethargic, then we would need to be like uplifting the nerve and stimulating the nervous system, so that again we come into the happy place where we can interact with each other and be dynamic together in a balanced way, right? So yeah, it's easy to think that yoga is all about relaxing, and I think any one of us, like even yin yoga, which does not include, for example, sun salutations. Yin yoga is a style of yoga where you take a yoga pose and you stay in that pose for 5 to 10 to 20 minutes even. And so the idea is that you will not use any muscles to be in that pose. So you'll need props, or you'll take the pose in a way that you can relax your muscles. But then we can go a layer deeper into the tissues, into the joints, and stimulate the parts of the body that typically aren't as much stimulated in other ways. They are used constantly, but they aren't necessarily like lubricated. And so it's not necessarily super relaxing, because it can be difficult to stay in a pose for that long, even if the muscles are not engaged. It can be mentally difficult. It can be physically, challenging. So we know that, all of us here, because we've taken lots of yoga classes of different kind, and we've noticed how, one day it's easy to do yoga. The next day it can be hard because of maybe the mind is so busy. And so I don't know that yoga is the right tool if someone wants to like bypass stress of life. It doesn't work that way. However, yoga can be relaxing after having done all of the effort that yoga poses bring. Afterwards, hopefully the yogi feels like expansion and relaxed and centered and focused. Those are things that could be outcomes of doing yoga, right?
Yeah, that's so good. So many. I like the different angles that we're coming at this. And you brought in some perspective that you just have more expertise than I, Hanna. What I wanted to share, really along the lines of what you were saying, Jewel, well, both of you, that there are so many different styles of yoga, but the one that many of us are most familiar with is, Patanjali yoga, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is called classical yoga. This is, again, there's many styles, but I just thought I'd read from you here. This is kind of like a very common basic definition of yoga. So this is from the Yoga Sutras, sutra number 1.2. And it says, yoga is the stilling of the changing states of the mind. Yoga is the stilling of the changing states of the mind. So that, in one sense, that, and I'm just going to read this first. It's a long sentence, but it's one sentence. There are various definitions of yoga expressed in different traditions, which, while all overlapping, reflect the fact that yoga referred to a cluster of practices featuring various forms of discipline and mind control practiced by many differing ascetics and communities on the landscape of ancient India, with a view to liberation from the suffering of embodied life. And so I just want to place that there. That's kind of one common definition of yoga, right? Essentially, like you could say in simple terms, like calming our mind, stilling our mind. And like both of you really alluded to, there's so many different styles of yoga. Many of them we are certified in, many of them we share. In fact, I'm just for fun, I'm gonna read through. I pulled up here the list of all of the courses that we have. And so I'm just gonna read through some of the different courses that we have here at Happy Jack Yoga University. And each title will give you a sense of either a specific style of yoga or a specific intention of yoga. So the hero's journey is based on a vinyasa sequence, which is very not relaxing. That's very energizing, very empowering. Then we have
And
the
it's the
Buddhist.
basic 200-hour teacher training that we love the most. It's the most transformative one. It's like the foundation. Of course, you can take any of the ones that Jack is now going to read up, but the hero's journey is what we call the 200-hour teacher training.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. And jump in anytime as I'm reading off some of these if you want to add something. So again, that the basic sequence there is vinyasa, and it's very empowering flow. It's still accessible to all levels, all experiences, all body types, but it will challenge the practitioner. So then we have Buddhist psychology and mindfulness, which obviously is a course that's supporting that mindfulness, that relaxed, stress-free mind. The divine feminine yoga goddesses, so that connecting to your inner goddess. Yoga for mental health, which is like hugely important these days. Yoga as spiritual care, so really taking we do physical care, we do mental care. Yoga for spiritual care. Yoga for conflict, our dear friend Amy created that. Trauma informed yoga, that's one with you, Hanna, so important. Yoga for leadership, confidence, and voice. Bhakti yoga, which is really the yoga of love, the yoga of devotion, the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Meditation, just a core basics, one of the limbs of Patanjali yoga. Then in yoga for everyone, we have yoga for kids, chair yoga, power yoga. Power yoga is definitely not relaxing. Curvy yoga, inclusive yoga. In pranayama, mantra, and mudra, we have a hatha sequence, some kundalini yoga, some hatha yoga mixed in. Then we have prenatal yoga, business of yoga, that's not so much a style. Yoga philosophy and spirituality. Now here's one that actually is relaxing. The next one is called restorative yoga. This is perhaps the one, is that correct, Hanna? This is perhaps the one that, yes, this is about relaxation.
Yes, that is correct. There is no effort in this style of yoga. Restorative yoga is when you take pillows and blankets and you put them to support your body to stay in the pose, and you do nothing but just show up in the pose. And the pose itself, so your arms and your legs aligned in a certain way, and gravity is what makes the magic happen. The yoga pose together with gravity.
Completely surrendering. I
Yeah.
love it. So was it your sister, Jewel? Did you say? Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, was my sister.
Yeah. So your sister is not incorrect. She definitely is aware. There is definitely a relaxing style of yoga, but as you pointed out, it's not the only one. I'll just quickly mention just a few more. So then there's yin yoga, which is happening this week. If anybody wants to join, send us an email at info@happyjackyoga.com. It's not too late to join, or whenever you listen to this, because it can be done as self-study. But yin yoga, which was talked about, yoga for injuries, yoga nidra, yoga life coaching, yoga for boosting your immune system, yoga for pain relief, and finally Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga. So I know that was a lot of information, but really just to, if anything, give us an idea of yoga has many different potential results, many different intentions. But just from that list, like some 4 basic styles you could say is like vinyasa, hatha, yin, and restorative, that are just like really purely asana. And of those styles, only one of the 4 is completely relaxing. So we're really busting that myth very well. I will also just say in the one course, which is, got to say, one of my favorites, because it's like the first 25-hour course that I created, which is pranayama, mantra, and mudras. And in that we have specific practices, some breathing techniques and practices that are meant to calm and center and relax, exactly like your sister said. And we have just as many practices for energizing, igniting, empowering, waking up. So coming back to what Hanna said, depending on what our outcome is, if it's the end of the day and we want to wind down before we go to sleep, definitely a relaxing practice is like perfect. But if it's the beginning of the day and we're kind of stiff, we're getting out of bed and we want to energize before you got to go take care of a young child, as you do, Jill, and all of the different responsibilities that we have, then a more in energizing practice is definitely warranted. Last thing I wanted to add. I'm sorry. This is the thing, Hanna. When you prepare us, it gives me all this time to prepare. So I got so much that I want to say. But we have some of you in the Zoom will be familiar with with the sequence card that I'm holding up. So the hero's journey, which is the sequence we use for our 200-hour yoga teacher training, and there's a flow that it goes through. So even within one sequence, it's not fair to say, well, the hero's journey is dynamic and energizing. It is, but then if we go to the end, to the gratitude sequence, right? Well, then we're doing half pigeon and happy frog and forward fold, the supine twist and shavasana. So just that section of one yoga sequence does become more relaxing and more of a surrender versus the passion series, the commitment series, etc., the breakthrough series. So just within, I guess the point being, even within one sequence, within one class experience, we're going to have different experiences. But again, Jewel, your sister is correct in that every good yoga class ends with shavasana, and shavasana is a time to relax. So although not completely accurate, the myth, there is that part of it where, yes, in a nice shavasana, we all will get to relax. So what do you think? Well, you've hung out here with us this whole time while you're
I'm
taking
just going
care
to
of
add
little ones.
one thing.
Yeah, please
Can
do.
I add
Yeah.
one thing? First of all, great job, Jack, with like all of that. Really great summary and like perspectives. One style that was not mentioned that definitely also is relaxing is yoga nidra, which is actually a style of yoga. And there's people who practice it every day. And it's all about relaxation. It's a guided meditation, kind of like a system that takes the person and the nervous system through a journey and is deeply relaxing for most people. Right? So yeah, Jewel, go ahead. What's your what are your thoughts?
What's your
Well, I
final
definitely,
reflections?
I definitely got my sister, well, kind of signing up for my practice teaching lessons, and I will show her the different styles that we have, all pregnancy safe. But yeah, I'm going to teach her.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's
Great
so good.
point. With pregnancy, of course, it's not a bad idea to learn how to relax and also use the breath because that's going to come in handy during labor. So yeah, very good idea to keep all of it pregnancy safe.
Yeah. And what a gift though, Jewel, that your sister has you at this time. I'll just put you on mute again so the baby can make their beautiful sounds. What a gift to have you here. Because actually we probably are not going to get it at the end of this call, but one of the, Hanna preps me with some questions. One of those questions was about if you're pregnant, should you start yoga? So I'm just going to sneak this in right now. And so, well, considering that yoga means connection and union, or it literally means yoga is the stilling of the changing states of the mind, I'd say that could be very helpful for a pregnant person. All right, there are some elements of yoga that absolutely could be very helpful to start. But I would also add that if you have not done asana, if you've not done the hero's journey or vinyasa flow or power yoga, when you're several months pregnant, would not be the best time to start that. But if anyone is already a practitioner of yoga, which then I've seen it many times where students are practicing a dynamic practice well into the later stages of pregnancy, because their body's used to it and they know what feels right. And what I have always been taught to share, and what I always share, of course, I could not have personal experience myself, but the point being is that really we need to honor our body. So yeah, and even those of you who are mothers and have birthed children, you don't know exactly what the student is feeling. So you can't say you should definitively do this or definitively not do this, but really just encouraging the student, your sister, to do what feels right and to trust yourself. And I think cultivating that inner trust is a really important thing during pregnancy. Yeah. Okay. All right. You sent us some hearts. Love it. So, well, thank you so much, both Jewel, for bringing in this myth. Let's send the love high vibes out to Berlin, Germany. Thank you. And by the way, if anybody has a myth you would love us to bust, send it in. Send it to info@happyjackyoga.com. While you're at it, I mean, I should just quickly say, like, if you want to send in an email, if you'd love to join us live here in Zoom, send us an email. We'll give you the Zoom code, and then come and join us, because we get to meet you before the podcast starts, and we also get to chat with you after the podcast starts, if you feel like sticking around. And of course, we have our Friday yoga classes. So if you want to come and practice yoga with us live, send an email. We'll get you the Zoom code. With that being said, Hanna, I think we got some time here. Let's jump into the main topic. What have you got for us?
Okay, so shifting gears. So today we wanted to discuss something from let's say the journey that the 200-hour teacher training, the hero's journey that we teach. We're kind of like following the syntax of that training on these calls, and we'll bring in topics that we discuss in the training. And today we're discussing module, is it 7? Yes. And that module is called Get Out of Your Comfort Zone. And in this module, we'll discuss lifestyle choices, because often when a person starts yoga, they might want to shift the way they eat, or, because you become more and more aware of your body and how it feels, and doing yoga with a full belly is not a great idea, and so forth. So that's one of the things we discuss in that module. And then also we discuss essential language for teachers, what that means, and if we can teach poses that we can't do. We discuss prenatal yoga. So in that way, this call today was really on topic. But since the whole theme in this module is get out of your comfort zone and what that means, I wanted to discuss that with you, Jack, because you're so good at making real life examples. And so if I were to ask you this, like, how does yoga or taking a yoga teacher training get you outside your comfort zone? Like, if you could make an example from your own life where maybe that happened in the past, and maybe something that would be more present, because it's not that it only happened once in the past, but like your yoga life keeps taking a lot of turns and twists. I think you being at Harvard is part of your like getting out of your comfort zone in a big way. So module 7 is getting out of your comfort zone. And if you were to let us into your world, like, how has yoga challenged you?
Yeah, I love it. I love the question. And I mean, there's so many examples that I could give of how just being a yoga teacher and standing in the classroom with people looking at me while I'm calling out poses that is like out of my comfort zone. But I want to first jump to how it's still impacting me today, and some kind of current real life examples. And so, because stepping out of our comfort zone can look different ways. Sometimes, yeah, maybe it's being the person at the front of the room calling out poses. But another way that it can look, which I think is really important for many of us, sometimes it looks like asking for help when we need help. And I did that yesterday. I did it yesterday. As you know, I'm studying Sanskrit here. I've been studying it for a few years. I'm now studying. I've progressed to intermediate level. Next year's advanced. That's going to be wild. But I'm in intermediate right now, and truthfully, there's 5 students in the class. 3 of us are like actually intermediate. 2 of the students are actually advanced, and the pace for this past month it's been picking up and picking up, and these past couple of weeks it's going too fast for me. Like it's really going too fast. I'm finding myself doing my homework, basically just doing it as fast as I can so I can get it done, but I'm not really understanding it. I'm not really getting it right. And so the point being, yesterday in class, like I came and I kind of vulnerably said, in front of all these really super smart people, younger than me, doesn't matter. Um, and I said, hey, like I just first of all started with an acknowledgement. You guys are smart. You guys are so good, and I'm like so inspired by how much you've learned. But I got to share, like I'm not able to keep up, and just the pace that we're going through, I'm not able to keep up. And just really explained, like, is there, like, could we try something like this, or do you have another solution? Do you have any ideas? And when presented in that way, everybody, some of the other students who are like me are like, yeah, actually I'm exactly the same way. And of course the advanced students and the teacher were happy to slow it down. And so that just being like a little example, because I'm sure at earlier stages of life, to save, or to not look inferior or something like that, I might have just like pretended, because I could have just kept going with it and I would have got through. But I'm here to learn, right? I'm not here to get it done. I'm not here to get an A. I'm here to learn. And so as soon as I recognized that I wasn't really learning, or it wasn't so as effective, just being willing to raise my hand and be a little bit vulnerable, and ask for help. And I would want to acknowledge so many of the students here who are here with us live, that they often as well will raise their hand and be vulnerable and be open, and ask questions, because that's the, I think, an important quality of a teacher is not to have all the answers, but to be willing to ask questions, ask the right questions, ask vulnerable questions. So I
Yeah,
feel like that was like an example of stepping out of comfort zone.
that's amazing. And in fact, I love that you mentioned this even within our community. People who join our 200-hour, it is a program that happens in 13 weeks, and there's a lot of content to go through, and people do it at home while going to work and raising children and taking care of their pets and everything. It's a lot that everybody has going on, and so it's a very, very common worry, or like a stressor for a lot of people, just how you are explaining as well, like this is going so fast, um and I worry that I won't be able to keep up. And sometimes people join the calls feeling guilty because they didn't do everything, and we always encourage everyone to come anyway. Like it's not about getting things done. It's okay to take the time you need. And same for you, Jack, like you want to enjoy that journey that you're on, and not just robotically fill in um Sanskrit into your tables. I can imagine the way you study it's quite intense. So that's
Yeah.
really great that you would allow that for yourself. And I'll add also that as teachers, if we are willing to be this vulnerable, we make all of this a little bit more human. Because I think a lot of us come with all kinds of assumptions to yoga on having to do the pose perfectly, and people don't want to use props because whatever, because they want to do well. All of us want to do really well, and we want to prove to ourselves that we can do really well. And it's beautiful that we can do really well also with props and with help and with the slower pace, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the beautiful thing I find, when we do in this way step out of our comfort zone and ask for help, people want to help. Like people genuinely want to help. I was like a little bit like, even though I did it, because in a way I'm like at this stage of life, I'm 20 years older than most of these students. Like I'm not trying to impress anybody, but there was still some part of me that was thinking like, they're going to be rolling their eyes, in their mind, and like, oh my god, we got to slow down for this character, come on, get your act together, or whatever story was in my mind. But that was not the case, because the one student, Yan Yao from China, she's like a PhD student, fifth year PhD student, and she's like, hey, I'd be happy to meet with you, and because I said that I'm, even everything we've done up until now in this latest translation, I'm like, I don't really know what's going on because I haven't been able to write fast enough. And so she's like, hey, I can meet up, before class or after class. I'm happy to help and tutor. um, Point being, people want to help.
And
And
how does
again, we
that make
see,
you feel, Jack?
it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good enough. It makes me feel like I'm not a failure. It makes me feel like there's not something wrong. It's more just like, because like that's the only way to learn, right? Is to get help and to collaborate and to ask questions. And
I really
for
love that
first,
for you. That's
yeah,
music to my ears.
nice.
Yeah,
And we
sorry.
see it. We see it with the community as well. Like whenever a student, on a satsang call will really vulnerably be like, hey, I'm just not meditating anymore. I'm just not, Katie on a call recently had shared like she used to be getting up really early, but she's not been doing that. But because through her vulnerability and her sharing, there's people who are like, hey, I'll be your accountability buddy. I want to do this too. And people just start stepping up because they want to help. And so that's kind of like, it's like we're not just stepping out of our comfort zone for our ego to be like, hey, look at me, I can step on stage at a yoga festival and teach, and I can do it. Like that's not why we're doing it. That some of that might be present in the beginning when we're getting started, but the whole point, right, is to be able to grow and to share and to learn and to connect. And
And to soften.
yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. And we don't come to yoga looking for a perfect teacher, the perfect individual, the perfect role model, or the perfect body. Like people don't come to a yoga class looking for a perfect picture, right?
Mm-mm. No, that's what we're really establishing here. I mean, yoga is so much more. And I mean, another, you asked about real life examples. I feel like
Mhm.
the next opportunity I have to step out of my comfort zone is, I've hinted at it on certain calls. I'm not sure where on the podcast, but at the end of this semester, so basically, 6 weeks from now, I'm going to pack up this apartment, my little 1 bedroom apartment, my picture of Krishna, my picture of my Akashi Lake back home, my guitar, books, all this stuff, packing it up. It's going back home to Canada, because in January, when I move back down here to Boston, I'm moving into the local temple, the local Bhakti Yoga ashram, because I really want to be in an environment. I want to be in association with yogis who are getting up early and doing hours of these spiritual practices, and then sitting and enjoying meals, nice vegetarian meals in community, sitting on the floor, eating with our hands, like just getting back to like this basic ashram lifestyle. And in a way, though, this will be out of my comfort zone, right? Because I have, even though this is a 1 bedroom apartment, it's nothing fancy, but there's space, right? There's privacy. I got my own bathroom, I got my own fridge, my own bed. Where now I'm going to be sharing a bunk bed, 6 guys in one room. um, and I'm sure there's going to be some moments where I get woken up in the middle of the night, this and that, and cleanliness, organization, right? Just some of those challenges could be there. But I feel like through this practice, through the 200-hour hero's journey, I guess I've seen what happens when I step out of my comfort zone, when I put myself in environments, with people who uplift me and can have these kind of meaningful conversations. so I guess that's kind of the next step, which hasn't happened. Actually, I haven't even told my family yet. Haven't told my parents, but if my mom, maybe she watches these on Facebook Live. So, mom, if you're watching, heads up. I'm moving into the Bhakti Yoga ashram in the new year. Not that it impacts them in any way, but it's like, yeah, sometimes we do these things. It's kind of like when we take groups to India, Hanna, right? Like probably our student or us are not going to go and just permanently live in India. I guess you never know with someone like me, but probably we're not going to go and just like permanently live there, but we grow so much from the experience. And I know that in Christmas, in 6 weeks, I'll be back hanging out with you, and we'll be sitting in, a lazy boy chair and eating a vegan pizza and watching a nice Netflix, like having some relaxing time to balance it out. But sometimes stepping out of our comfort zone and I don't know, that's where the growth happens.
Yeah, and progress happens, right? Like I think that's what maybe keeps us happy and feeling fulfilled when there's a feeling of things actually advancing and deepening and expanding. So,
Yeah.
it's really, I think it's really vital also, for our continued growth. We're never done becoming, like we're constantly growing. And that's what I find fascinating about the practice. I never get tired of it. I never get tired about talking about yoga, you know?
Yeah. That's it. That's what I mean. That's why we're here. We got a dozen of us. And again, I just want to thank everybody who's here live with us, everybody who's listening to the podcast on one of the platforms. Like I feel like this is my purpose. This is our purpose. This is our part of our seva, our offering, our dharma. And and actually doing this podcast was out of our comfort zone. It was an idea for several years. It was one of those things of like, oh, we should do this, or it would be so cool to do this, or one day we'll do this, and now all of a sudden it's just like it's in the calendar and we do it.
Yeah. Or the whole online platform. Like most of
Oh,
you have done training with us online, and it's a very, I think, well-oiled machine right now. Like you can come take any training at any time from anywhere in the world and have real life connections with other amazing human beings. But just a moment ago, it did not even exist. And the moment we created it, we were like, wait a minute. We don't know how to set up lights and mics and edit videos. And, we have all the knowledge and we are committed to always deepening that knowledge, but we did not know how to, do that. We did not know how to create online teacher trainings.
yeah. And so that was just another example of stepping out of our comfort zone
Yeah.
and just looking at who's here with us live. Like I won't talk about everybody, but I mean Brandon, right, our buddy in Canada, like he's jumped right in 200-hour hero's journey, playing full out, recording videos on YouTube, sharing it. Like I
And
mean,
taking the yin training that's happening right now.
right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
so much. Dee and Ken are here with us. Like, oh my goodness, it was such an honor to spend a year with you both. They're at retirement or approaching retirement, running a martial arts studio, and took this time. Imagine that at this stage of life, you're like
Yeah.
a master martial artist, and now going back to being a beginner yogi, but giving yourself permission to do that, right? And Dee and Ken, you've done that and been on the journey together. Diana, oh my goodness, you're crushing it on social media. Got to give you a
Mm.
shout out. Like, oh my, like I want to say, do you have someone professional helping you? Like, are you really doing this by yourself? But you're just putting yourself out there. So much great content. Again, I'm
Mm.
not going to go through. I love everybody, Elizabeth and her book, and Jewel
And
asking the
Stu.
question.
Yeah.
Sue coming down to the retreat in person. and just giving yourself permission and already saved up your spot for next year for the retreat. That board break was so inspiring. I mean, I could say something about everybody. Kiernan's been doing it for years. Tanya's got incredible classes going. Yada, also all in on her 200-hour hero's journey. Felicia, Colorado, doing it with family and everybody. So the point being is that all 12, I feel like these are like our best friends who are here with us in Zoom. So it's so cool to have you here with us. And just really encourage each of you, the 12 who are here are doing it, and anybody who's listening, and let's not compare to one another. You don't have to go to university. You don't have to move into an ashram. You don't have to go to Liechtenstein. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to go in a cold tub. All these things are great, but I think we're all finding our own unique way, right? Coming back to the hero's journey and finding joy, following your bliss, and not going into the forest where there's already a path, but finding our own path.
Yeah.
And that's when it's scariest. And that's when, like, right now, I know for me, I'm in some way I'm inspired by other role models and other people, but in the greatest way, I'm on a path that I've never seen anybody else do. And at moments it's scary and it's uncertain for a guy who loves certainty, but it makes me feel alive and it feels right. And I feel you just like the right, like connecting with this guy who's George Harrison's buddy, who's like happy to help, write me anytime, hop on a Zoom, of course, the whole George Harrison thing, that's just because I love Beatles, but even putting that aside, someone who's been on a spiritual path for like 60 years, that's really the cool part about it.
Yeah, and still lives in the world, so it's so fascinating. Like not recluded away in a mountaintop, but actually co-creating. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, he lives in Oregon.
Right.
I can check. Shout out Salem, Oregon. If anybody, for those who are out on the West Coast, USA. But wow, time flies. It's so awesome being here with you, Hanna, with all the yogis in person again. Oh yeah, I meant to say at the beginning, but we still have a few here. We lost a couple. If you're here or if you're still listening, if you would be so kind after the episode to open up either Spotify or Apple Podcasts and give us a rating. 5-star would be amazing, and a little comment. So right now we have 7 Spotify ratings and 9 Apple ratings. And my goal, I would love to see those get to 10.
Like this.
Love to see them get to 10. So if any of you hasn't had a chance to do that yet, open either Spotify or Apple, give us a 5-star and write a little comment. And then maybe next episode we'll be able to celebrate 10, which means more people are finding this great practice of yoga.
I love it. Yeah, let's do it. Nice. I'll do it.
Okay. Amazing. Well, everybody make it an amazing rest of the day. Actually, for those who are here in Zoom, hang on a minute. We'd love to connect and debrief with all of you. But if you're listening, make it an amazing day, and we'll see you soon, my friends. Namaste.
Namaste.